led by Mafika, a veteran photographer, activist, thinker, and comrade. The Mafika Gwala Memorial Lecture is one of the highlights on our festival program, particularly because we center ourselves around intergenerational dialogue with younger generation of poets finding inspiration, leadership from veterans, but also being able to reflect on their work, interrogate their work, and to be able to use that knowledge and experience to be able to foster dialogue, to be able to build a better future for all of us in South Africa. The Center for Creative Arts, presenter of the Time of the Writer Festival in March, also presents the Durban International Film Festival in June and July, the Jumbo Contemporary Dance Festival in August, and the Poetry Africa Festival in October each year. We position ourselves around presenting festivals that foster dialogue, interrogation, and engagement. Located within the School of the Arts, we work closely with the Academy of the University and serve as the community engagement wing of the Center of the School of the Arts at the College of Humanities. It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the School of Arts, Professor Silahukile Ngubane, to briefly address us. Professor Ngubane, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ismail, and welcome to all of you to this august event where we are keeping the legacy of Mafika Gwala, Umpepecho. He's a Durbanite. He was born around Verulam, and then he spent all his life in one of the township in Hammersdale. So he's a Durban boy, and he's an activist who also is an author and a writer and a poet as well. One of his books, Musho, is a book of praises, which is still accessible even today. He started writing in the 70s. And as the School of Arts, we are very proud that his legacy is still alive. And we annually celebrate his efforts and contribution to the isiZulu literary works. And we are very proud today to welcome Babu Sandile, who's also one of the people who is acquainted with his works. And we are grateful that we are all here. I hope you will enjoy. On behalf of the School of Arts, College of Humanities, I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ngubane. The Mafika Gwala Memorial Lecture is one of 3 memorial lectures that we present during the Poetry Africa Festival. On Friday this week, we will present the Masisi Kuneni Memorial Lecture. Last week, we presented the Professor Kiropetse Khotsili Memorial Lecture. We're incredibly proud of this association with South African Institute Online, and Umar, for your support and engagement with the Center for Creative Arts. It's my pleasure to hand over to you to introduce the speaker and to lead us through this session. Thank you very much. Omar Bacha.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Professor Ngubane. This is the 8th Mafika Gwala annual lecture, and every year we have this lecture. We are always accompanied. This lecture is accompanied by a program organized by young people in Hammersdale Township. But unfortunately, this year we couldn't link things because of these issues of the power surges, and so I'm hoping that some of the people from that Mafika's Township would be joining us today. You know, we always, every year, ask ourselves now, who do we invite to be our keynote speaker? And I began asking around for suggestions. And Sandile's name came up. And I had not met him before, so but I had read some of his poetry.
Yeah.
And so I picked up the phone, and he was gracious enough to say yes. But at the same time, I could feel that he was incredibly nervous. Sandile, don't be nervous. We are absolutely honored that you have accepted our invitation, and we look forward to your presentation. Over to you, Sandile.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ishmael. Thank you, Professor Gwala. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, everybody who has come to attend what I really call a conversation, not a lecture, a conversation. So let me just go into it. Sishaywa zimvula nje simanini nje umhlolo sekhaya. Reading Mafika Gwala in times of thunder and the terror of the elements. Sanbonani, Ulweni, good afternoon. Dumelang, hello, Absheni. Hola. It is an honor to be with you this afternoon, and I'm really grateful to the organizers, particularly because, as Omar just said to you a minute ago, I'm the lesser known of the writers, of the beautiful people, brothers and sisters who have spoken before in honor of Mafika Gwala. The task at hand certainly daunts me, yet it is also animating beyond any singing of it. Adrenaline is another kind of jazz. Yes, I'm here and sacrificed other important stuff for this historic assignment. I had to rise to the occasion. The possibility of opening myself up for a kiss or a kick in the butt, a warm embrace, egg bombs, or a beheading. Of course, the latter part is said in jest. I know it may perhaps be too dark a big oops, given the fact that in other parts of the world today, people's heads indeed are chopped. That horrendous forms of literal and metaphoric beheadings do take place. Please don't switch off thinking this event contains violence and is therefore sensitive for viewers. Kindly stay with me. By all means, let us talk some more. I would like to acknowledge Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, who is one of the senior members of staff at UKZN, as well as, of course, Professor Ngubane, my dear elder artist activist brother Omar Bacha, Ismail Mohammed, head of the Center for Creative Arts, Spindile Shongwa, curator of Poetry Africa, dear colleagues, artists, friends, and comrades. My topic in Zulu and English, of course, has a cosmic, political, and poetic shift. This is deliberate. We're honoring a poet, after all. It is a provocation. It is a quest for a meditative invitation of Mafika Gwala spirit to be an integral part of our collective fight towards a better, just, equitable, peaceful, and safe South Africa for all. This is a moment of deep introspection towards justice, equality, and light. Ideas are prayers, ideas are songs, ideas are complex textures and lenses through which our world can be made more luminous. Poetry provides such possibilities, good poetry, that is. Poetry from the pen of our beautiful and unforgettable creative spirit, like Mafika Gwala. In his name, we've gathered today. Iti, Mpepete, Zimande, Kondlwane, Jolinkomo, no more lullabies. This is an ongoing conversation. Why are we hurting ourselves and embracing stubborn emblems of blood and hate again? How long has the sun been gone? How long have we lost words that heal and give us hope? Give hope to her famished rhythm. Give hope her famished rhythm, brother. What is wrong with our country today? What are we doing to get things right? Why are we failing to uproot poverty in the land? Whose land is it anyway? What can the poetry of Mafika Gwala tell us about the shame and the mess we're in? These are some of the questions I'm just throwing in the air, so to speak. So many of them, so little time. I prefer to call what I'm doing today a conversation. It sounds better to me than a lecture. After all, I'm not speaking here as an all-knowing God. I'm just here in the spirit of Mafika Gwala to share the very little I can share with you. As a result, I'll be using a different registers because there's, of course, in such an occasion, the expectation that one should be academic, intellectual, and so on. But I'm hoping that is not my focus, really. But the focus is sharing knowledge, sharing perspectives, insights to the best of my ability. I'm here to talk to anyone who can follow this discussion, no matter class, level of education, and so on. My first encounter with Gwala is worth noting here. I say this because unlike most of the previous speakers, such as Mandalanga, Professor Arisitas, Dr. Blaine Zimande, Fred Kumalo, and Professor Imran Kubadia, I do not have a close personal friendship with our beloved poet. So let me in passing say how I fit, perhaps, into the broader Gwala socio-political and artistic world. I first encountered the poet's name in my English 1 class at the old University of Natal in Durban, now the University of KwaZulu-Natal, our host this evening. This was in the late and turbulent 1980s. His 1982 poetry collection, No More Lullabies, was the book I was exposed to and deeply treasured as a student and Black consciousness active. My English literary studies at the institution did not yield much. My teachers, including some iconic Southern literary scholars, such as Michael Chapman and Margaret Damon, were not to blame. They were excellent teachers. It was my focus on something else, the politics of the day, a student's commitment to a revolution that one had hoped would arrive one day. Gwala's poetry appealed to me for these reasons, amongst others. He was Black, proud, and espoused Black consciousness, a movement that animated my university activism days. Also, his poetry was teaching me so much about the Black condition under apartheid in other parts of Africa and the world. It was teaching me history. It has never bothered me that he later moved out of the BC movement, at least in a political, organized form, because he had a lot of sensible things that he said that, in my view, were legitimate critiques. But also, I'm excited that in poets like our own Lisiho, Rampuluke, Bavino Bachana, the spirit of Mafika Gwala is still alive. That's what matters to me. So reading Gwala's poetry gave me a new language, a new set of bold ideas that I felt were smart, radical, and poetic. Much needed intellectual ammunition regarding many debates and issues that at my age were urgent, to feel that being part of the liberation struggle was worth it, and that although dangerous, some people had already done it and were doing it. It was right, necessary. Here Mafika Gwala in tapping, and I quote, "I'm still surviving the traumas of my raped soul, alive and aware, truths jump like a cat leaps for fish," end quote. This is Mafika Gwala, ladies and gentlemen. Besides my lecturers at the university, I also had a lot of dear comrades and friends who loved literature like me. In certain cases, they knew more than I did. Two names come to mind: the late Professor Tengani Ngwenya and Professor Vasu Reddy, now a senior academic working at the University of Victoria. Gwala was already a major figure in Ngwenya's research, and both of us were excited when he published an interview in the dazzling progressive magazine Staff Writer in 1990 or thereabout. Through these discussions, I began to appreciate the artistic and cultural commitment of artists in the South African liberation struggle. That is when I grew to read the works of Don Matera, Ingwapele Matingwane, James Matthews, Gladys Thomas, Miriam Mtadi, and Bessie Head, to mention a few. At high school, I had read Gwala's contemporaries, especially Mongane, who at least wrote his poem, in particular, City Johannesburg. One poem of Sipho Sepamla, whose title I've now forgotten, and also Al-Musaid Njali's Inside My Zulu Heart. It was also such sweet joy to read an excerpt from Zakes Mdaz, We Shall Sing for the Fatherland, a work whose imaginative power has stayed with me to this day. As to how these works had passed the silly eyes of the apartheid censors at the time is a question for another day. Whatever the intricacies involved in the slip-up, I learned so much and continue to follow the works of these and many other Black writers who wrote at the height of apartheid and colonialism generally, and those, of course, who have since emerged. To round up this introduction, this poem also remains etched in my mind. This is Gwala, of course. Ukubuza, ukamkhulu, unxe. Old man Nxele's remorse. This was written a few days after the 16th June Soweto riots in 1976. With just 6 lines, it is punchy and it asks a simple yet brave question for the times. Bafana bami, badubula izingane zethu eSoweto. Yini pho esisayiphilela. In English, in the same poem, the lines read, sons, they are gunning down our children in Soweto. What more are we still living for? End quote of the poem. Then I'm interested to ask and to say to this conversation, to this gathering, why is Gwala relevant today? Because I doubt that these annual lectures are basically there for their own sake. They are registering to us a certain agency to remember Mafika Pascal Gwala. Let me open with a quote. In his music, one could hear the rhythm of protest, so eloquently expressed in work songs of unskilled laborers. One could feel the moving pathos of the songs of widows of the reserves. One could be swept up in the spirit of defiance and revolt conveyed in the surging freedom songs. But above all, his music resounded with the joy in life, which is at the core of our musical tradition. This quote is by Z. Paulo Jordan. It is in reference, it is a tribute to the late Johnny Jan. I will now discuss the relevance of Mafika Gwala, especially in South Africa today. I will do so under the main rubric of history, because I just felt, let me just look at him in that sense. In the process, this encompasses Black consciousness and international solidarity, among others. It is impossible, I would argue, to read Gwala's poetry and not appreciate its rich and diverse musicality. That is why I have opened this section with a poignant quote by Paulo Jordan in his obituary to the late great exile, South African jazz bassist activist Johnny Jani, titled Freedom on the Baseline, which was published first in Rishaka, the Cultural Journal of the African National Congress in 1987, and then revised for two-tone in 1992, and in 2017, it was published by Jacana Media in Johannesburg. I'm getting here to the musicality of place and the rhythm of memory, because these are recurring themes in the poetry of Mafika Gwala. From Jolinkomo in 1977 to No More Lullabies in 1982, and of course in other poems which featured in different platforms. Just listen to the musicality of Jolinkomo. Up from the river, near Lusigi, the Mpondo maidens would sing this song. Jolinkomo, down the Mtamvuna River, children waiting anxiously for sunset. Jolinkomo. The poem expresses his love for the laid-back Eastern Cape countryside. Mafika was born in Verulam in 1946 and grew up in Hammersdale Township, Durban. So he lived for the better part of his life in the urban areas. And of course, as it has been said earlier on, he also lived in Hammersdale. I mean, he lived in Hammersdale to the very end of his life. But throughout his work, one gets this sense that he longs for a countryside that is musical, that is filled of certain memories that in the city may not be as prevalent, certain sounds, certain sonic features that matter, that can help revive his soul. It seems to me the countryside was important for his spiritual sustenance, reconnecting with the Black experience, far from the noise of the industries in Durban, Pinetown, Hammersdale, and so on. It mattered to enrich his poetic voice with the dominant African cultural expressions that were not easily accessible in urban areas. As I said, I see our Mafika Gwala involved in the writing of history. And then I would like to share just a few historical markers in his work. I begin with the insights from J.G.A. Pocock, who argues, quote, that historical narrative is a way of thinking about politics and a species of political thought. Essentially, end quote, of course, essentially, I'm referencing this quote to argue that how we tell history is often, in fact, a way of making certain deliberate political statements or interventions that we consider urgent for whatever ideological or even personal reasons. We return to history in order to deal with the predicaments of the present, in order to prepare ourselves for the future. We read the past in the present, through the present, and in a manner that serves the present and the future. In Gwala, the historian emerges from the ghetto and the smoldering cauldron of colonial violence to call the names of the fallen, to call the names of the people, and help restore their dignity through the poetic song. Fellow writers and comrades, Mandalanga and Arisitas put it this way: there is song, there is truth, there is oneness, there is laughter and struggle in the children of Nonti. There's a meta-narrative, an intricate narrative of liberation. There is art and there is resistance, end quote. Plays and protests feature a great deal in how Gwala writes history in the poetic form and in his world as an activist. Let's hear Langa and Citas again, open quote. Despite the ugliness, despite the violence and civil war that gutted Hammersdale and Mpumalanga, despite the closing of one textile mill and clothing factory after another, despite the enduring hardships, we want to believe there's laughter and song, but there is resilience in the children of Nonti. In fact, let me rephrase it. The last line actually reads, but is there resilience in the children of Nonti? This is an important question. And I suspect it is a question that speaks to the bigger questions of the day, especially the socioeconomic dilemmas that we face in South Africa today. I do not have the answers, of course. Safe to say, for Gwala, Nondin Zimande, an indirect relative by clan association in the Eastern Cape where he taught, was a legend, to use his word. Nondi, among some of the people in his teaching days in the Eastern Cape, in days where teachers could be shunted anywhere where there was a vacant post. It is Nondi who made his life bearable in those harsh days where he was far from home. Just listen to a few lines from children of Nondi. Nondi Zimande died long, long ago, yet his children still live. Generation after generation, they live on. Death comes to the children of Nonti. And the children of Nonti cry, but won't panic. And there is survival in the children of Nonti. End quote to the quote. What I also know is that there's still music in the children of Nonti. So that even when poverty persists, on these desolate roads, they song. And this is Mafika again. On these desolate roads, they song the black voices of the children of Nonti. And the poem. And then I'm arguing that, of course, in Mafika Gwala, we're reminded of how his literary history, speaks to the bigger issues of the generally politicized history of Africa, but in particular South Africa. And one of the perennial burdens of Mafika Gwala's writing practice was the constant conflict with the hegemony of white literary critics and editors. And possibly this is one of the reasons he did not publish as much as his contemporaries did, and as much as a poet of his power would have been expected to. In this sense, to read Gwala's life is also to be reminded of the power dynamics in South African literature today, and the status of the Black and radical activists in a world dependent on white goodwill, white liberal solidarity, and the harsh reality of the censorship boards. In this way, this reflection helps us endeavor to deepen our understanding of the struggles Gwala and his many writer comrades, such as James Matthews, Don Matera, Miriam Shadi, and so on, were grappling with. and trying to challenge in the heat of creativity and the political fires of the 1970s, the 1980s, and the early 90s. Another point worth making here, perhaps, is that publishing politics was not isolated from the broader politics of land disposition, the Group Areas Act, and the broader violence of colonialism and apartheid. For this reason, their relevance ought not to be restricted to the margins of literary imagination, where writing is purely seen as a lonesome artistic endeavor, a preoccupation of the mad, the crazy, and the bored. Also, he was not the first writer to face these challenges. The likes of Saul Plaatje, B.W. Vilakazi, S.E.K. Mkhai, Mphahlele, and so on, had faced similar issues under different historical conditions. Apart from the overtly political issues of dictating to Black writers, poets, etc., the other charge African poets often face, writes Wole Soyinka, is that of aping other models, particularly the European. I'm sorry. Somebody just came. I'm in a meeting. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you do Zoom live. Yeah, but anyway, let me go. Let me get to it. Yeah. So Wole Soyinka adds, the charge is of course frequently true, even to the extent of outright plagiarism, and covers the entire spectrum of stylistic development. 20 years ago, it was quite possible to read poems of serious intent which began, open quotes, gather ye hibiscus while ye may, end quote. This is Soyinka in his reductions of poems of Black Africa in 1975. So here I'm saying the Black poet, the Black writer, from the beginning, from the moment he or she picks up the pen, possibilities that he or she is a fraud are always thrown at him or her. So this is what the likes of Mafika Gwala and others in many parts of the world, for that matter, continue to face even today. But I would like to argue that Mafika Gwala's style was distinct, very powerful, and it used the Zulu traditional idiom of the Izimbongi with various elements influenced by jazz, African music varieties, and many writers of the Harlem Renaissance and the Black arts movement. Most people, because Gwala wrote in English, might actually be led into believing that, his indebtedness to another tradition, which is the Zulu traditional Izimbongi, and other varieties, was actually not apparent in his work. But if you read it closely, you realize that actually even his English comes from that world, amongst other things, of course. This is not to narrow him to a geography or to a linguistic group per se. But writers like Nadine Godima have also expressed the kind of concerns that Gwala has expressed, which have to do with perpetual white tutelage in the spirit, in the mode of Steve Biko. Then let me come back now to Black consciousness within this historical frame. And again, I'm not going to repeat many things that people have said before. I'll try to make my point and get out. Black consciousness and the power of cultural and worker mobilization. When you talk to comrades like Omar Bacha, you hear just how in the 70s, early 70s, strong debates, very, very heated debates were happening between himself and other comrades, especially Mafika Gwala, on how the workers, the Black working class in particular, was central and important in the revolution that was being waged at the time. It is undeniable that although Mafika Gwala denounced the BC the BC movement of Azapo, for instance, the Azanian People's Organization, as an organized political formation in the late 1970s and 1980s. His huge footprints in the BC movement remain. There is no way any serious scholar or follower of Black consciousness movement today, can talk about this movement without referencing Gwala. He was a formidable force, and he was very close to the likes of Steve Biko, with whom he had heated debates and whom he criticized, strongly when he had to. And of course, this year we must also pay tribute to Steve Biko, because he was murdered 45 years ago, as some of you might recall. So this conversation as well is about the memory of our beautiful Steve Biko. As the BC movement is started on a sound footing in this regard, Gwala and his other comrades in the trade union movement sought to make the Black working class the center, and not just rely on students, the intellectuals, and so on. I know that my time might be up very soon, so I'll try to move fast. Yeah. Okay. Like Com Hogan, Gwala understood that cultural identity and the rights, war, and revolution. That is why the Gwala that we're talking about today led different initiatives to actually put art in action, but particularly art in the service of the liberation struggle. Let me just possibly move towards the end. I'll skip that stuff. And this is my main point, and this is where possibly there's more debate. This has to do with the general fact of the many failures of South African democratic project, especially the worsening levels of socioeconomic injustice, expose Black people even more today. Black suffering and Black pain are generally left to the occasional politician and lack serious, vigorous investment in theory. This is where we are today. So this is important in my view, because if we don't deal with this, what we tend to do is that when Black pain comes to the fore and tries to respond to the violence of whiteness, it has no language, it has got no vocabulary. And they suggest, and I won't read this, I'll just say, I suggest that the possibility of finding that liberatory language again is Black consciousness. Because Black consciousness mobilizes us as Africans, as colored, as Indian, in the schema in that old schema of apartheid. But also it speaks to a broader embracing of the continent of Africa and the broader solidarity of the suffering peoples of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandile. That was quite a tour of Mafika's work and his thoughts. I will open up the floor for people to come forward with they said, impressions. Sandiswa, please, the floor is yours.
No, Prof, I wasn't raising my hand for a question. I was just applauding.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Sandile, Mafika was a friend of mine, a comrade of mine, a brother of mine. And he would take issue with you, on a number of, in the way you interpret his work and his thoughts. There are, he was an internationalist. And the thing about, and I want your opinion about this, because he said that we become too obsessed about our blackness and forget the other sections or the other parts of our identity as and the struggle for just being human. It requires a long struggle, requires a dialogue, and he was, I'm sure you agree, he was not afraid of putting forward other views to his comrades in the Black consciousness movement. He didn't distance himself from the Black consciousness movement. He critiqued it. And that's a difference. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah. Well, you know, what is beautiful, Omar, is that the two of us are acting from different positions because we're closer to them. But remember, I'm reading his text. That's what I'm relying on. Because nothing ever changed in his work, in my view. And the Black consciousness that he's espousing is a progressive, inclusive Black consciousness. If at all, there's a different version. But just to address those who would be skeptical of what I'm suggesting. But what he's suggesting to people like Steve, beautiful leader of our liberation struggle, is that you as intellectuals, as the petit bourgeoisie, as students, cannot do it alone. As journalists, as artists, you can't do it alone. Go down to the factory floor and mobilize. And in his work, for instance, I agree with you, for instance, that he was not narrow in terms of what needed to be enjoyed. That is why, for instance, I talk in brief, of course, in the context of such a conversation, about the musicality of place. And this is not just the music of Durban or the music of Hammersmith, it's the music of the world. It's the music that he feels even as far afield as Vietnam, in the midst of the Vietnam War and the horrors committed by Americans and so on in that part of the world. So I'm with you there, but he didn't join AZAPO. So that's the point I'm making. I'm not saying he had to. I'm saying the critiques that he was advancing were valid. That's why, in my view, his ideas, particularly the uncomfortable ideas, must be brought back to the public imagination.
Yeah, I'm looking for people who want to participate, to ask questions.
Omar, you have a hand up by Daniela Demakatso. Demir has a hand up. Daniela Demakatso.
Hi, Butsandile. Thank you so much for this absolutely lovely, stunning lecture. I was just wondering whether you could perhaps elaborate a little bit more on your last point. I find it so interesting for sort of my current thinking, my current project, Mafika Gwala's work and its importance for global solidarity. And I'm particularly thinking, because I know you also concerned about that and you're very passionate about the cause. I'm thinking about the relevance of Mafika Gwala's points or views on Black consciousness and his writing for, say, a place like Palestine.
Well, thank you so much, Daniela. You'll be surprised, actually, in my draft I had Palestine, but I realized I don't have time to bring too many issues at once. Palestine, for me, even at the back of my chair, there's a Palestinian scarf here, because I firmly believe in the struggles of the people of Palestine, and I think through the voice, the stubborn voice, the questioning voice of Mafika Gwala, we can return to some, of these ideas of challenging power wherever it presides. Imperialist violence, wherever it is, doesn't matter where it is. That is why, if I'm not mistaken, in the second collection, the longest poem is dedicated to the people of Vietnam. That's what Mafika does. And why not expose this voice beyond the borders of South Africa? Because his voice, in my view, belongs to the world, particularly the world of the oppressed, the world, of people who are suffering tyranny. technologies of tyranny wherever they may be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Anyone else? Siyabonga, I see you here with us.
Yes,
well,
thank you very much, Omar. Thank you for the opportunity, and yes, I'd like to appreciate the lecture that we've just received from Ungiti. We surely appreciate it, and it gives insight into the different interpretations, if I might say, that all of us probably have of not only Gwala's work, but also his life. Knowing also and noting an enigma that he was to others, you know, and some of us are still trying to figure out who was this man, Mafika Gwala, and we are still trying to figure out his work as well. I truly appreciate it. I don't have any question beyond that, but I share indeed some of the points made, you know, especially about the Black consciousness. And we know that Gwala was very brutal at times on his comments about the Black consciousness and what he believed in, because, you know, he said, you know, there are more things to consider than just blackness. Yes, you are Black, but what is beyond that? Okay, there are societal challenges that confront us beyond how we define ourselves. So it's quite fascinating. I truly appreciate it. And thank you very much for the opportunity, Omar. And may this program grow from strength to strength. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, Mafika, one of the things that he said with regard to the new Black elite, which was partly a Black consciousness movement. And he said that one has to be very cautious because we don't want to go the way of the rest of Africa when a new elite takes power and then get consumed by it. And that was one of his points that he made continuously. You know, in his poem, Seed Times, you know, which I took the word Seed Times for my own book title, you know, he makes the point that don't be consumed by what this new liberation, new country presents, but be absolutely cautious, because the same thing that happened in 76 will happen now. The seeds of revolt will emerge and challenge the new elite. So yeah, you know, he was in many ways using his poetry to raise issues like that.
You see, if I may, there, Omar, for me, this is the excitement of evoking that spirit, because that's why I use the word spirit, emphasis, because of the possibility of the festival, to use the words of Mazisigune, the festival being a rebellion, like the way it happened in Soweto. I'm not saying it would happen the same way, but the possibility of a rebellion against the tyranny of whiteness must be welcome. The tyranny of the neoliberal order must be challenged. It is right to rebel against the tyranny. The rest is just, you know, stuff that is embedded in mythologies and other beautiful things, or sound, you know, or beautiful sounding things. So the possibility of a rebellion at the festival is important.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that your hands up, Caesar? Caesar, can you hear me?
Oh, hi. Hi. No, my hand is not up, but
Oh, sorry. That's fine. Thank you.
No, but very interesting conversation and beautiful reminders with Sandile. Like you said, there's definitely an urgency in hearing this kind of conversation to act as a reminder. And I think it's beautiful that poetry allows for that space, especially the poetry of Ubaba Mafika Gwala. You know, when you read The Children of Nonti, that poem, it still moves, and just the hope element, like you're saying, Prof, of Mafika's poetry that moves actually Black consciousness and not let it sit there in its depressed state. You know, it's quite fascinating. So yeah.
Great.
Yes.
There's a question there. Did you see? I read it. Thank you so much, Caesar. May I come in there?
Yes.
You know, this is what is disturbing, but also potentially fascinating about history. That, you know, nobody invites history, to his or her backyard. Africans or people of this continent did not invite the carving of Africa in the late 1800s through the Berlin Conference. They did not invite Vasco da Gama. Brahima Segel has got a beautiful song about Vasco da Gama, the sailorman who invented, discovery. That's how Huma Segel puts it. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to the question. But the possibilities for us, what I like about the question, Rain, is that it's a politics of language. Where is the lexicon that can take us out of this impasse? I'm fascinated, for instance, by the investment that is being put into queer studies, into feminist thought, into Holocaust studies, for that matter. Because what it means is that we're recognizing that knowledge production that is meant to provide a liberatory ethos, such knowledge production must be advanced. Yes, it must be critiqued. Yes, it must be challenged by all means. But it is part of the unending quest for liberation. And this is liberation really in a collective sense. My argument, for instance, is that a better world is a world where Black people also feel their dignity is respected, because they'll be better able to participate in the so-called, a better world that South Africa has been since 1994.
Thank you, Sandile. I see Ismail is hovering over us and saying time up.
Well, thank you very much, Omar, and thank you, Sandile, as well, for reminding us that Mafika Gwala belongs to our time. And the relevant question for us is how we continue to evoke his spirit. For us at the Center for Creative Arts, that's an important question as we continue to present our festivals and continue to find new ways of engaging young people in dialogue. There's been wonderful comments on the Facebook chat from Nokutula Masibum Simang, Ngiri Siyabonga, beautifully keeping up the spirit of Mafika Gwala alive. From Professor Nobuhle Hlongwa, the spirit of Mafika Gwala lives on Siyabonga, Sandile. And from Lucas Delisa Zulu, thank you, Sandile, for sharing about the works of Mafika Gwala. This program will be archived on the Center for Creative Arts YouTube channel or on the Poetry Africa YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We also invite you to join us later this evening at 7 o'clock when we present What's a Woman's Worth, which features a wonderful array of women poets, amongst them Lebo Mashile, Philippa de Villiers, Roche Castor, Manabu Galo, Diana Ferris, and that will also, although the event is live in Durban at the Howard College Theatre at 7 o'clock tonight, it will be live streamed on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook channel. So join us every day. Our full program is on our website, www.cca.ukzn.ac.za. Omar, to you and to History Online, we value this partnership to be able to present this annual lecture. We hope that next year we'll be able to present it both as a hybrid form, both as live and an online event. And Sandile, we hope to see you at the Poetry Africa Festival or at any one of our other festivals. To our audience, both online and in the Zoom studio, thank you very much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ismail.
Thank you. Bash, thank you very much for your work. Super. I'll be on my way to the office now, so I'll see you there. Okay. Great. Omar, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Oh, thank